for the organizations, people, and forces that enable innovation. Life flourishes because of a dynamic interaction between communities of living organisms and their environment. As you look deeper into these ecosystems, you learn that different types of organisms, each with its own distinct life cycle, are cooperating and collaborating to ensure the vitality of the whole system. Well-understood orderly phenomenon exist side by side with seemingly more random ones. Many of these phenomena also apply to innovation. In innovation ecosystems, the collaborative organisms include scientists, product developers, business people, service providers, and customers, all of whom participate in one or more of three communities: research, development, and application. Ongoing sustainable innovation results from interactions between these communities at an organizational, national, and global level. A beautiful flower or a luscious bunch of grapes begins with seeds. The right combination of soil, water, and air determines how well it grows. For innovation to thrive, the environment must also be right. Leadership style, adequate funding, and policy must all be aligned to fuel the innovation process. Education and culture also play indispensable roles by training, inspiring, and motivating the innovators of the future. Of these environmental factors, leadership and culture are the most important. If you have the right leadership, in general, the right funding, policy, and education will follow. And culture is critical because although it is leadership that provides vision, inspiration, and resources, in the end, innovation is bottom-up. So how do you create that culture? Through my own experiences and while doing research for the book, I came to realize that there are 5 core values that make up the fertile soil needed for ideas to thrive. The first is questioning, being curious, knowing how to ask questions and not just answer them, but also being able to periodically self-assess, the ability to question yourself along the way, and being willing to admit if you are wrong. In all of these cases, the tone of the questions is very important, whether you are questioning yourself or others. Inquisitiveness leads to openness and innovation. Judgmental questions just lead to defensiveness. The second core value is risk, a willingness to try something new, to pick yourself up if you fail, and most important is to learn from failure. Failure, when viewed in the right way, is a key stepping stone to success. Next is openness, open to imagine, to share, to collaborate, to listen to others, and in the end, to be open to change. Many historic inventions, from penicillin or Viagra to the Ethernet, came about because someone was open to serendipity and willing to stray from their intended research path. The last 2 values, patience and trust, are often the hardest. Innovation requires active patience. You need tenacity to keep going in the face of obstacles and the patience to try new approaches if things aren't working. It's very hard to question, take risks, or be open without trust. You need to trust in yourself and the environment around you. Those who fund innovation need to trust the innovators and have the patience to see where things lead. Innovation, like entrepreneurship, is rarely a straight path. Now, you can't just pick your favorite one of these and call yourself innovative. These 5 values need to be in balance. Trust without questioning is blind faith, which tends to stifle innovation. Risk without questioning is gambling. People impatiently seeking to maximize short-term gains, taking risks without asking questions, and without openness or transparency as to what risks they were taking, led to the failure of our financial systems. And then credit froze, and as nobody knew who to trust. The current financial crisis is unfortunately all too good a proof point of what happens when the core values are not in balance. So how do you apply this framework to an organization? A popular management technique for large companies is something called Six Sigma, which was developed for managing at scale, removing defects from a system and optimizing for efficiency. Companies train black belts and brown belts to help implement the Six Sigma techniques that are important to continually improving quality of products or services to meet or exceed customer expectations. Are management programs like Six Sigma good for innovation? It's continual improvement. Well, yes and no. After all, they do bring about change, but Six Sigma is about driving short-term, incremental improvements to optimize your business. For broad, more disruptive innovation, its tight processes and metrics are absolute killers. When you're dealing with the type of innovation that has the potential to drive future growth, you want surprises. Managing innovation is more like gardening than karate. It takes what I call green thumb leadership. You need to be ready to try different things and to make decisions without having a lot of hard data. You have to be willing to invest without knowing what the outcome is going to be. Part of your job is to protect small new projects from the elements so that larger businesses don't kill them off before you have a chance to see what will emerge. My first job out of Stanford was as employee number 51 at a company called Zilog that was started by some people who created the early microprocessors at Intel. At Zilog, I got my first taste of the excitement of working with a small, talented team, experiencing firsthand what a small company willing to question the status quo could do. It was also my first lesson in how large organizations can kill innovation. During the latter part of my time at the company, Exxon Office Systems, which was an investor, took an increasingly influential role. And in 1979, long before the personal computer existed, we gave a presentation to Exxon's management on a new networked computing system that we were developing, suggesting that it could be sold to companies as a general-purpose desktop computer with word processing software. Sounds obvious today, was not so obvious in 1979. The people at Exxon didn't have the vision to understand how our technology was different from the single-function, hardwired word processing products that they had previously invested in. They did not want to take a risk and would not fund the project. I left Zilog with both a passion for entrepreneurship and a sense of frustration of how large companies too often cannot recognize disruptive ideas because they're so focused on their current business models. Unfortunately, innovation at both entrepreneurial and large businesses is suffering today from increased short-sightedness and risk adversity. And let me just read to you a paragraph about each from the book. I might add that my friends in the venture community, when they found out that I was writing a book, thought I was going to write 220 pages of a rant against venture capital today. And I think they were very happy to find out that it's really only about 10 pages of a rant about venture capital today. But the final paragraph of that part that is a rant goes as follows. Venture capitalists should look in the mirror and ask themselves if their investments are consistent with the high-risk, high-return, company-building strategies expected of their funds. They need to relearn how to nurture the companies in their portfolio without getting in the way of management. Their limited partners also need to have patience and recognize that we cannot compensate for the losses of the bust without seriously compromising the future. And I don't let entrepreneurs off the hook. And entrepreneurs need to understand that starting a company is risky and hard work and not an easy road to riches. Founders should be passionate about building companies that have value for the long term while being open to serendipity if the right suitor comes their way. Now, not only do we have a problem of short-sightedness in the venture community, but amongst our large public companies, and I'll just read a short paragraph about that. A CEO serves at the pleasure of the board of directors, and both are responsible to shareholders. The interest of all groups should be aligned to create long-term growth, but investors' desire for faster returns, diminished trust in the boardroom, and shorter CEO tenures have combined to make it very hard to define what, quote, best interest of the shareholders means. Organizations don't operate in a vacuum, and to say the least, the last decade has been devastating to our national innovation ecosystem. To get back on track, we need changes across the board in leadership, policy, education,